Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Generation GC. My name is Molly and I'm your host. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Like It's Her Birthday from Cardiology, Good Charlotte's 5th studio album, which came out in 2010. My guest today is Nikki Phillips. Last week we talked about something else from Good Morning Revival. We've got a bonus episode coming in just a few days, and then next Wednesday we'll be back talking about a song from Youth Authority. Nikki is a photographer and assistant based in Los Angeles, and she was born and raised in Philly. She is currently studying music industry and business at NYU, and most recently began as an A&R at an emerging digital music platform. In the past, she has worked on Warped Tour and hosted an artist discovery radio show. She is inspired by music of all genres and strives to capture musicians in their element while showcasing their talent to the world through social media and photography. She has checked off most of her performance photography bucket list with only a few remaining. And yes, she has photographed Good Charlotte quite a few times. Additionally, Nikki enjoys thrifting around LA, being a dog mom, and fueling her coffee addiction. As you can tell from this intro, Nikki is someone with a ton of experience in the music industry, but she is also a very big Good Charlotte fan, so we have an awesome conversation coming up for you. But before we get into that, there are a few things I wanted to mention. First off, I'm a Jew. If you've been listening to this show since the beginning, you've heard me mention my bat mitzvah. But if you're new here, yeah, I'm Jewish. Anti-Semitism has unfortunately become very common in recent times. I don't think it ever went away completely, but in the past few months, the past few weeks, I've just been seeing it more and more. There's been some very public incidents with celebrities, as well as, I'll go on TikTok and see Jews posting about being Jewish, and then they just immediately got bombarded with hateful comments. This is not okay. It's completely unacceptable to hate someone or to make prejudiced, biased, hateful comments based on their religion. Please visit antisemitism.card.co to learn more and sign some petitions. Second, the United States Postal Service is in danger. I know that not everyone that listens to this show is in the USA. In fact, about 30% of my audience is outside the US, but hopefully this still resonates with you. Just a few facts. The United States Postal Service employs over 500,000 people, and it's the number one employer of veterans. Donald Trump has rejected a bill that would save it from running out of money in September. And there's a petition going around that I'm going to share, encouraging you all to sign. We need to show those that wish to dismantle and privatize the USPS that we are against letting one of our prized institutions fail. I've been posting about this a bit on Twitter, about, just how critical the USPS is for mail-in voting, as well as for small business and independent artists and creators. So please do sign the petition. It'll be in the show notes. And as a reminder, as I've been saying every time for the past 2 months, please visit blacklivesmatters.card.co for info on how you can help on the Black Lives Matter movement. There's information on protests, info on where to donate if you can't donate money. There's videos to watch and playlists to stream where they'll donate revenue. Also info on how to educate yourself and more petitions to sign. Finally, Generation GC stickers are here. Do you want a sticker? Of course you do. 2 things you can do. Number 1, support the show on Anchor. Go to anchor.fm/generationgcpod and click support. That helps me sustain the show and have the right equipment, headphones, microphones, charging cables, everything I need, as well as do things like print stickers and get them mailed to you guys. Right now, stamps are pretty cheap, but, we need to save the USPS so that I can afford to mail stickers to you guys. Otherwise, it will be pretty expensive. Number 2, donate to a charitable organization. I know I've shared a lot of petitions, but please don't donate to change.org. Go to blacklivesmatters.card.co, make a donation to an organization listed there, or, just pick something local to you. I just want to see that you guys are getting involved. And then you're going to send me a screenshot of your support of the show or your donation and your mailing address. You can DM me on Twitter or Instagram at GenerationGCPod, P-O-D, or email generationgcpod@gmail.com, and I will mail you stickers. I will also occasionally tweet or post on the Instagram story about other ways you can get stickers, whether that's good deeds you can do or ways to help spread the word about the show, so make sure you're following. Thank you all for tuning in, and now on to episode 21 of Generation GC. All right, so Like It's Her Birthday, that's our song today. It's track 5 on Cardiology. It was the first single from the album, and they started playing it live that May and June on the Bamboozled Roadshow, which, like, I don't know if you got to see that tour, Nikki, but I saw it on Long Island, and it was awesome. It was such a great lineup. And then, did you get to see it?
I did. So I honestly don't remember. I keep thinking, like, okay, I know I saw it in New Jersey, but I don't know. I don't remember like the specific date that I went to. I just remember driving and that it was raining. Was it raining at your show or no?
No,
okay.
So I went to Long Island because I had an internship in New York, and Long Island just happened to be the weekend date, and I didn't want to take off work. So no, it was like great weather. It was the first festival I'd ever attended, and it was like Good Charlotte, Simple Plan, All Time Low, Forever the Sickest Kids, LMFAO. Hanson didn't play my date, but I think they played some other dates. I think Third Eye Blind played some dates. Like, it was a good time.
Yeah, I do. Oh, okay. Hold on. It's all coming back to me. I did go. I stayed in Philly, and it was at Festival Pier at Penn's Landing, which is like super dope because
that's
like
the first place I saw Good Charlotte was Festival Pier.
Yeah, I love. Oh my God, I have so many memories with that whole outdoor venue.
It's a great venue.
It really is.
So yeah, so they played this song on Bamboozle Roadshow, and then it was like officially a single in August 2010. I just had to note that I picked this song. I mean, we had talked about it a bit, Nikki, on Instagram, but this episode is going to come out around my birthday, August 30th. So I was like, fuck it. Like,
very appropriate.
Right, very appropriate. But it's a fun song too. And I always like to look up how songs have done on the charts. And Cardiology, and as has been discussed on the show, but Cardiology did really well in Australia, better than it did in the US. This song peaked at number 7 and was certified platinum in Australia, but it was also number 8 in the UK, and it hit the top 40 in Finland and New Zealand. And it also hit number 35 on the US Billboard Pop Songs chart and charted on mainstream top 40 and dance club songs. So I was surprised about that because I don't think I ever heard this on the radio. Did you?
So I do remember hearing it on Q102, which was like the top 40 pop station in Philly.
Okay.
But I think overall Philly has been playing GC just like a little more than everyone else, just because they have so much history and like, you know,
they were the first city to play GC on the radio.
Y100 was like the first station, which I feel so old saying that because it's not even around anymore. But there's just a lot of, there's a lot of love there. So I do remember hearing it on Q102, not a lot, but I think for that time period, like those few years, the top 40 was getting like all crazy. Like it wasn't just pop, like bubblegum pop, they were playing all sorts of different types. And I do remember hearing it, but like not very often. And that got me back to putting mixed CDs back in my car at the time.
To be fair, I guess this would have been probably when I had my old car, which like sometimes the radio didn't work, so I listened to a lot of CDs, so like probably wasn't as aware of the radio for a minute there. So like maybe that's on me too, but I would like listen to the radio a fair bit.
Yeah, I think also I remember like as being like young, I just would love driving around. And plus like I was still living in Philly then. You could just like drive to Jersey, drive to New York, drive to Maryland.
Drive to the beach,
like, yeah, it's like everything's within like a 2-hour radius. And after I would get tired of my mix CDs, or my passengers would get tired of my mix CDs.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, pop punk number 35 mixtape, turn it off. So we would switch to the radio, but and I would just get excited and be like, haha, look at my song that's on the mixtape is on the radio.
Right. I know. I always love those moments.
Yes.
So per setlist.fm, they will, kind of list how many times bands have played certain songs. They have a bunch of records of Good Charlotte playing this song between 2010 and 2012. I don't want to say that's completely conclusive, but, I did a quick search on YouTube as well, and I haven't seen anything since 2011, 2012. I want to save a little of that discourse of why they might have dropped it from the set lists.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I have some thoughts, and who knows? I could be right. I could be wrong.
Right, yeah, we don't know. It's an open end.
It is. But I noted that I found a fun acoustic that Benji and Joel did, which I thought was really cool, because they have a way of taking their, very upbeat and, in this case, dancey kind of songs and making them stripped down.
Oh yeah, it's like just a little change of pace, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, this is still good. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I've heard artists, dub down a fully spectacularly produced song with like tons of bells and whistles, and then you break it down to like an acoustic, and you're like, damn, it's okay, but like,
you have to have a good song at the core.
Yeah, it's like the song at the root, acoustically sucks. It's like, okay, well, that song was maybe produced very well, but
the song is
really that amazing. Yes.
So. Are you a fan of AJR at all?
Yes. They record in their base or their right?
Their living room. Yeah, and I bring them up because they have such interesting like productions and song structures, and they're pulling from Israeli hip hop and dance music. And SpongeBob, yeah.
I love them low key so much.
I love them, but then they'll put out like acoustics, and I saw them when their album Neo Theater came out. They did an in-store at Vintage Vinyl in New Jersey, played acoustic, and like all this stuff sounded so awesome acoustic too. And that's another example of a band that will write songs. I would say in AJR's case, more of a production than in the recording, but also songs that hold up really, really well acoustic, because they're just great songs. Yeah,
it's almost their music is like very theatrical.
Yes.
Like I'm gonna say a little like Panic at the Disco vibe, with all it's just like you just hear so much happening at once, but it works. And then you hear a broken down version, and then it also works.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, if you can pull this off at both extremes, then like
you're doing
there's
something.
No doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt that you're not doing something.
Yeah. But Nikki, before we dive more into Like It's Her Birthday, I want to help our listeners get to know you. So the first question that I always ask is, when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and what were your first thoughts on them?
Okay, so I grew up in Philly suburb of King of Prussia, and there was like a huge mall there.
Oh yeah, been to that mall many times.
Yes, you'll be lost.
Yeah.
So, my mom used to take me to the mall like once a week to buy me nail polish. I don't know. It was like this thing. It was like this thing that we had. So
were you like the typical emo kid, like black nail polish, or did you do a lot of colors?
Okay, so at this point, I was still getting like glitter rainbow from Claire's.
Okay.
and like icing or whatever. But I think right when I started like 8th grade into 9th grade, it was like jeans, black t-shirt, Converse. I got like black rimmed glasses, black nail polish. Like it was just like a kind of like a 180.
Yeah.
But I think
as many of us went through, yeah.
There was no gradual transition there. It was just like,
no.
And I had started listening to like, I'm going to say like emo, pop punk, like all that much earlier. But, there really wasn't social media. I mean, the internet, we had dial-up internet. So it was like, what I learned and observed was everything that I saw like on MTV or like magazines or something. And I think like over the summer into high school, I was like, fuck this. I need to be like cool. Like, like I need to like, my outside needs to match my inside, you know,
exactly.
Something that's like probably so outrageous that right now I'd be like cringing thinking about, but I was like, 14. So, but no, so I used to go to the mall like every week with my mom, and I had to look up the date actually, because I couldn't remember, but the actual date was July 28th, the year 2000. And
so right before the self-titled came out.
Yeah. And honestly, it's like almost exactly 20 years.
Yep. Wow.
Like coming up. It's crazy. But anyway, so we were in there shopping, and we come out of Claire's, I believe, because it was like a corner store. And in the big center, the center circular part, were these like two guys playing music acoustically.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, look, music. Like, what is this? And then I was like looking, I'm like, you know what? These guys look super familiar. And I said, like, I was 13, I think.
Right.
Yes, I think I was 13. I was like going into 7th grade. And I said, I know these guys from somewhere. And then obviously my mom was like, go ahead, do your thing, whatever. So I started watching them. And then I don't know if you remember, there used to be a TV station called The Box.
I don't remember.
So it was around for a long time, like in the 90s. And then I think what happened was MTV bought it out and then like revamped it as The Box. I'm not sure what it was before, but you would call in and pay $1.99 to request a music video, and they would play it on the spot. Isn't that wild?
Okay. So it's like a jukebox, but like
it
bigger
would be
scale.
Like, yes, which is like so obsolete now that you're like thinking about all of your other options with technology and streaming and stuff. But so anyway, I remember sitting there and like I would just watch music videos all day, and I never called and request because I'm pretty sure my mom would kill me if I ever dialed like a 1-900 number, you know, like I was like too scared to do it. So I do remember seeing the video for Little Things. And so that's where the connection happened when I was at the mall. And I honestly was like, oh, I remember this kid. He has the pink splotch in his hair. That's that video that I love on the box. And my mom's like, you know, whatever. Like she has no clue what I'm talking about. But she's like all about it. And so I stayed for the set, and like I got to meet them, obviously. I mean, I don't remember it as vividly as like I kind of wish I did.
Right.
But it was just a quick like hello, like and of course I was like probably so awkward and like who even knows.
Right.
But that was like the very first time that I ever saw them, you know, and met them like in person. But it was actually, I think that watching the video on The Box was probably only a few months prior to that.
Right.
So
I have to ask.
That was that.
I have to ask, since you were at the mall and you'd just come out of Claire's, I have to ask, did you like immediately then go into like a hot topic?
You know what? I was with my mom, and I have to say, like, my mom has from the start been like totally cool with like all of my phases. You know, she's never said anything terrible. Like I bleached my hair and basically it fell off my head, and she was just like, okay, yeah. She was like, you know, well, whatever. Like she was never like discouraging or never like, oh, you can't do this. Like she was just like, I have to say, like, I'm so grateful that like she was very like easygoing with that. But so I never actually really like wanted to go in a hot topic with her because I felt like, you know, I was, I don't know.
You don't want to go in a hot topic with your mom.
With your mom. Right. So I usually saved it for like when I was there with my friends.
Right. Okay. Fair.
But I think like PacSun is where I drew the line, or like the Van store, which is considered, you know, I thought back then I was like, ooh, the Van store is so edgy.
Oh,
like,
very edgy.
What was I thinking? But you know, I was 13, so it's all good.
Yeah. So Nikki, we had connected on Instagram, I think back in May, and on your page you have some awesome music photography, you know, Good Charlotte, of course, but a lot of other bands that I think that people listening to this probably also love. You know, Reliant K, Sleeping with Sirens, Andrew McMahon. Can you talk about how you got your start in photography?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always had a camera like with me. I used to bring like disposable cameras to shows. Like I'm going to put it back at the level of like the mall shows.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we were going field trips and I was bringing disposable cameras. I just always have loved to document stuff through photos. And then in high school and college, I took mostly all of my electives were like art and photography and just things that, yeah, I really enjoyed. So I always have been into photography. And there was a point when I was like probably 19 or 20 that I was doing it like often, like kind of like doing shows and things. And then, you know, life just changed for me for various reasons.
Sure.
And I kind of like lost touch with it. And so fast forward like a bunch of years, I moved to LA and then I got a job here and I'm like, you know what? I really miss like something. There's something that's missing. Like I just felt like my creative outlet was gone. You know, I do draw a lot and like I have some tattoos and I drew most of them myself.
That's really cool.
So yes, it is pretty cool. So with that, like I just felt like I was missing something and I'm like, you know what? I think I want to get back into photography, especially like I'm in LA, like
oh my gosh, like so much going on in LA. Yeah.
It's like my element, you know, like, you know, not just like filming and photographing shows, but like it's just gorgeous. Like, you know, there's just so many cool places to see and explore. So yeah, I kind of just jumped back into it, got myself new camera, new lenses, and I just kind of threw myself in and started reaching out to some of my friends here. And I said like, hey, I'm getting back into photography, you know, can I photograph your show or take some promo shots for you or whatever? And I only had like a very small circle of connections.
Sure.
So I was just kind of relying on them. And of course, everybody was like welcoming me with open arms, like, oh yeah, come on, like whatever. So you know, I just started gradually doing stuff at shows and just little sessions with my friends. And it just kind of kept building and building and building. And then I, you know, met a lot of people through the friends I already had. And it just, you know, your circle grows as the more time you spend here.
You just got to have like that one connection, that one circle.
Yeah. And then and like me personally, like I also like really focusing on like self-improvement. Like, okay, I need to like really step up my pictures here. Like, obviously, I mean, I even look back at some stuff from like 2 years ago versus now, and I'm like, damn, I like really like made it much further than I, you know, realized. Like,
that's such a great feeling.
Yeah. And you don't really feel it as it's happening. Like, you know, there are small moments where I would do a show and be like, oh, some of these shots are so cool, but like it never, like the big picture, like never really like unfolded in front of me.
Sometimes you have to step back a bit to kind of appreciate things. I've felt that for myself a ton.
Yeah. And that's especially like the past few months, I've really had time to like be going through some old stuff that I hadn't posted. And it was just, it's very like refreshing to watch yourself succeed. Yeah. Especially when, I mean, it's not that I wasn't trying, like I'm still trying.
Oh yeah.
But you know, it's just, you don't really notice it, I think, until you take the time to be like, oh, so, yeah. So I just, you know, I did that. I did it. That's me. That's mine. And I still am very like, it's not, I love compliments and whatnot, but I still feel very like, I think it's my personality. I'm just like, oh, thanks. You know, yeah, I think it's great too. And in turn, I'm like, this is fucking rad. Like, yeah, I love that shot. But I'm just like kind of very composed.
Learning to take a compliment can be tough because I feel like you want to be proud of your work and you don't want to be bashful or ashamed, but
yeah, you don't want to be like dub it down, but I don't want to also be like, yeah, I'm the best.
Yeah. Right. Like, but, you don't want to seem like conceited.
Oh yeah. Cause I'm please. Like I'm like looking at other photographers' pages and I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is so good. And then
photography is an
roommate's like,
easy one to get lost in comparing yourself. I mean, you know, I've
100%.
always been a writer too, but photography more so than writing, because, you know, a writer shares something on Twitter, you have to click the link and spend a few minutes reading it. A photographer tweets a photo or posts a photo on Instagram, and you're just like, oh,
it's right there. Yeah,
right.
It's like
right
immediate
there.
absorption, and you're like, yeah. Oh. And I'm like the worst. Like I have to say, like, I'm always like, oh my God, their stuff is so much cooler than mine. Or like, look at their shots. And
we were shooting the same show. Why are their shots so much better? Yeah.
Yeah. Or whatever. And then I'll be like, you know, they really got that shot and I didn't. And like, well, whatever. Like, fuck it. That's life. Like, because internally I'm a very realistic person. So I will just be like, yelling at myself, like, well, that's how it was, like, you know, whatever. And I'm fine with that. But I just, you know, and I do take into consideration, like, everyone has like various styles. Some people don't really have a set style. Some people are more like versatile with, like, you know, whatever. And I am very guilty of like comparing myself with everybody else. And it's not even on like a level, it has nothing to do with the other person. It's more just like, I'm comparing to my own work. So, you know, but I have learned to like grow from that. I will admit that I'm much more like aware of how I'm thinking of something when I look at it, versus like, okay, don't be in there like saying, oh shit, your picture is like not that great. But you know, I just try to look for the positive, or, you know, that's just how I am. So but I've gotten better, I will say. No more comparing as much. So,
and you've done, I mean, you know, you said in the bio you sent over to me that you've photographed most of the people on your bucket list. You know, obviously Good Charlotte is a band that goes way back, but besides Good Charlotte, what's like the standout show you've shot, whether that's like the biggest show you've shot or just your favorite photos you've taken?
So I it's kind of a toss up. I guess one of my favorite shows that I've done recently was Simple Plan with Chance, like We the King.
Awesome. That was such a great tour.
Yeah. And that was at the Palladium, which was pretty cool. And like, I reached out to Chuck and I was like, hey, Chuck from Simple Plan. And I was like, hey, you know, is it cool if I like, you know, stop by and take some photos? And I think at this point we were talking about like taking photos, like possibly at the time they were in the recording studio. And he was like, oh, I'm down. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I was so excited. And then, you know, things didn't work out, like the scheduling got mixed up or whatever. And then he's like, just come shoot the show at least. And I was like, oh yes, like I'm here. So that was pretty cool. But I think another favorite show, like all-time favorite show that I did was, so Vic Mensa had a side project, like 93 Pumps.
Yeah.
He did a show. Oh, it's a really cool project, by the way. If you have not listened to it, it's very like, I mean, especially right now, it's very empowering. But anyway, he did a show at Madame Siam, which is like this tiny room basically in the basement in LA. And this is the only show that I was literally like in the crowd, in the pit with my camera, like taking shots and then like getting like punched in the head, obviously by accident.
Those shows are stressful.
But like, yes. And
but we've all been there.
Yeah. And I am very like, I'm a step back person. If I'm working, I try not to be like, you know, in the crowd if I don't have to be, obviously, just because I have my equipment and, you know, if someone's bumping me or whatever. But this, I didn't really have a choice. But the energy was like crazy. Like, I mean, everybody knew every single word, and it hadn't been that long since the music was released. And
that's
and
cool,
I was just
though.
like,
that's a cool vibe, because you can tell that they're fans. They're not just there to be there. They're fans.
Yeah. I mean, it was hot as hell. It was like probably like 85 or 90 degrees in there. Everyone's like sweating, you know, there's like no service for anyone. Like it's like really in the basement basically. And I just remember like, I was like, I mean, I couldn't stop smiling and like yelling the words and everything. And as I'm taking photos, and I'm not necessarily like the most like extroverted person. So I'm kind of more mellow. more of like an observer, just, you know, I'm there to get my stuff done. But
sometimes
this was
you
like,
have to like assert yourself in those kind of situations.
Yeah. I mean, but I was also like, there's only one other photographer there. And it was just like amazing. Like I felt so lost in the moment at that show. And I don't always feel that way. Not necessarily because I'm not enjoying myself, but I'm more focused on like what I'm doing in the process of, you know, or like, you know, but, you know, this, I didn't really have a choice. I was just like thrown into it. And I was like, I mean, it was just so fun. And honestly, the shots from that show were some of my favorite. Like, they're just very contrasty, very punched out, like black and white. And like, I was so pleased with like the shots. I was like, I mean, I was telling everyone like how great this show was. And a lot of people weren't super familiar. They're just like, okay, whatever, Nikki, you shot another show. Cool.
Yeah. Right. But
yeah. I was like, no, this was like an experience. Like, plus I had never seen Vic before, like, you know, do a live performance. So just so much good energy. And it's like he has so many, like, such a strong message. And it's like, you just feel so much power, and like everyone there was just so united that night. And it was just like a really cool experience. So that's probably like my actual favorite show. So cool. I mean, just because I had a different personal experience.
Yeah. No, that sounds like an amazing show. And we've talked, I mean, I could totally just do like an entire podcast with you talking about, you know, your photography and everything you've done in the music industry, even if we didn't get into this Good Charlotte song. So maybe I'll have to have you back. But before we go into the song, I wanted to ask you, I mean, you have all this photography, you're studying music business, you're an assistant, you work for a digital music platform, you did Warped Tour, you had a radio show. What would be your number one tip, like your little quick tip for someone who wants to get their start in music but isn't really sure how to get involved?
Okay, so I'm going to say this as a tip for everyone and a big fat reminder to myself, because I need this. Asking for help, reaching out to people, trying to make that connection. Just put effort into it. I mean, don't stand around and expect that if you email somebody for a photo pass and expect to get it or whatever. Just try, be friendly, reach out. Don't be afraid, of like rejection, because I'm guilty of this. I'm still guilty of this.
Oh, totally. Same.
I mean, it's so crazy. Like, I feel so comfortable around certain people, or, around just people in general. And then I like lock up and I'm like almost afraid to ask for, like, hey, is it cool if I get a photo pass or whatever?
Yep.
Can I shoot the show? Like, and if for being like, I'm pretty confident in my work, but for some reason
there's like a weird self-consciousness sometimes in like, well, if to me the thought process is like, well, if they really thought I was that good, they would have asked me.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. And then I realized, like, you know what? They have a lot of shit going on. Like, the last thing they're thinking about is, hey, let me reach out to Nikki and see if she wants to photo the show. Like, they're like, what the fuck ever. If she wants to photo, she'll ask. And then meanwhile, I'm like, oh, if they want me there, they'll ask. So that's my biggest thing is like, and I'm still so guilty. Like, and I know, like, I have to be more diligent about just being like, hey, is there any way? I mean, obviously right now in the time that
no one's shooting shows right now.
No one's shooting anything. Yeah. But in one of the first times that I said, I'm really going to like, take a shot and stop being like, so like, oh, I'll just like, twiddling my thumbs, is when I reached out to Chuck. And this was even before a show. And he was just like totally open to it. And I'm like, wow, like, okay.
So all you had to do was do it.
All I had to do was ask.
Yeah.
And like, it just unfolded in front of me. I mean, and it doesn't happen like that every time. So, and that's, I think, is like the biggest fear of anyone. Like, something goes great the first time. And then you're like, you almost like set yourself up for like a letdown when it doesn't go as perfectly the next time. But that's just life. It doesn't happen like that. And I'm okay with that.
For sure.
But But yeah, so I would say don't be, try, not don't be, you know, it's not condescending, but try, you know, like not to be so, not down on yourself, but don't doubt yourself, you know.
Perfect.
Even though you may feel that way, just take the chance, because if someone is taking the time to say no or to give you like you know,
better than
an inappropriate response.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, at least you got a response, you were acknowledged, and you know, it's not personal most of the time at all.
Yep.
So it's just like, hey, you know, we already have the list full, or we already are doing this, or you know, we don't really have anything open right now. But it's like, you know, they will remember you reached out to them, and you know, maybe they'll reach out to you in the future, maybe they won't, but at least you made your mark and you exist. And I think it's important that you know, kind of just put yourself out there, even if you don't feel comfortable, because that's still me. That is 100%.
Me too. Don't worry.
So
I love that, Nikki. That's awesome. That's a great piece of advice. Let's get into Like It's Her Birthday.
Let's do it.
You know, so we talked a little bit about some different songs from Good Charlotte that you really love. What makes Like It's Her Birthday stick out to you?
So the real you, I know it's near your birthday, and yes, that the song was released on your birthday. So for me, okay, so I can have a similar experience. So the song came out then, but then, drum roll, the entire album was actually released on my actual birthday.
Love that. Love that.
Which was November 2nd, which was a Tuesday, which, if you remember back in the day, records and albums were released
on Tuesdays. Yeah.
So yeah, but to me, that was like a huge deal. And I was like, oh my God, the first single is Like It's Her Birthday. And then I'm getting the whole album like on my actual birthday.
Yeah.
And again, I was like, I'm so fucking cool. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't thinking that, but I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, this is like the best birthday present ever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so of course, you know, not for that reason, but like that Cardiology is actually my, I shouldn't say this, but I think it is my favorite album.
Okay.
Maybe by like a hair. It's hard to say, but it's very close to the top. So, you know, I only had heard Like It's Her Birthday, and I didn't know what the album would sound like. And then,
which they would kind of do, like they would release that like fun party song before the album comes out, and you're you kind of would have to rely on like whatever they'd say in interviews.
Yeah,
you know, leading up to the album to know what to expect.
Yeah, and then if you're like, oh, I love that song so much, and then you know if that's like your type of song, like, you know, you love that like upbeat, dancey, like poppy, you know, type of music, and then you get the album, there were definitely other songs on there that were similar, but there are definitely some that towards like the second half that were just a little different.
Very different, yeah.
And that's like where I was sold. I mean, I was sold on the second half of the record.
Oh my God, the second half is so
I still
good.
Listen all the time.
Yeah.
It's like a very special place. I know there's a lot of things with that record, and I think we're going to get into that later, like label changes and stuff, and like things that, I mean, who knows what really would have been on the record or how it would have actually sound, I don't know, but I'm like beyond elated with how it's turned out.
So let's talk a little bit about what this song means. I would love to hear, Nikki, like what you think it's about, and then I'll share, you know, my thoughts, and we can dive into what the band has said.
Okay. Well, initially when I heard the song, I was like, oh, it's about this girl, and she's kind of like a party animal, and she's like cheating on whoever with the song, like, you know, and I don't think I really like read into it. And then as I got older, like the last year or two, I started to like really think about what they're saying, and I don't necessarily know that maybe the subject in the song is cheating or anything like that. I think it's more as, okay, someone's in a relationship with this girl, and maybe they only see this like, you know, shy side, or she's just like kind of like chill, like she's just low key, whatever. And then I think like, you know,
like they see this shy girl and then they're like, oh, I didn't know she would do this.
Yeah. And then I think maybe like at some point, you know, they're like, oh, like they realize that she has this other side to her, that like they were like, oh, I didn't realize you were like this. It's not necessarily like a bad thing. But I think it's like you're just taken back. Because I know I was like just reading over the lyrics again, like just for myself, like, you know, I'm like, what? Like, am I missing something? Because sometimes you get lost in just the melody of the song and you're like yelling the words without actually processing what you're saying. But I think basically like she just like loves attention, and she just likes to be in the limelight.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way.
Yeah, of course. It's not like, definitely nothing negative. It's just like, you know, that's not like the girl that, you know, he sees, like, oh, well, like we're just at home like watching movies on the couch and you're always hanging out with me, whatever. But like, oh, you have this side where you're going out with all of your friends and getting wasted, like, but like maybe she likes to keep them separate, she enjoys both, I don't know. But that's kind of how I interpret it now. I think like she does like to go out and have a good time, but she maybe just in the relationship keeps it low key and uses the relationship. It's almost like a downtime, but doesn't intertwine the two, obviously.
I love hearing that, because I will admit, like, I didn't really grab onto that nuance. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this song and I'm like, okay, you know, they're singing about a girl that's just living it up, living every day like it's her birthday. She wants to be the center of attention. She's not holding back, and she's just determined to have a good time. So I like that nuance that you have in your interpretation, that it's from the perspective of the boyfriend or partner who's sees this low-key person, this maybe homebody kind of quiet person, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know you were like this.
Oh, am I dating the same person?
Right,
yes.
right. Kind of a subtext that I feel like you have to have listened to the song a bunch of time and spent a lot of time with the song to pick up on that.
Yes.
I like that though.
Yeah. Just a little different insight.
Yeah. Benji did a track by track of this album with Alternative Press, which is not like on their main website anymore. So you had to archive it. But I don't know why, because like he had so many great things to say about so many great songs. Anyway,
and they archived it,
right? But it's still it's not.
You just have to dig, yeah.
You just have to dig, and I'm
a little extra effort.
Oh, I'm digging. But he said about this song that every Good Charlotte album has a couple tracks on it that are just for fun. This is that song on Cardiology. It has a good mix of the old school sound from our self-titled record from 2000 and the sound we explored on Good Morning Revival in 2007. We knew this one would be fun to play live. You know, I think that hits what they were kind of going for with the overall sound of the record. But something I was just thinking of as I was getting ready to record earlier this afternoon was that I think Generation RX, which is the most recent record, was the first time that they didn't have any fun songs.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's a short record, and I get why they did that, because it's a very serious and intense record. So I get why they didn't want to throw in like a fun song. Like, how would that even fit?
It almost would be like, really? Like, you really had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
And though I just would like to note that I do like how at the end of Generation RX there is California, which is just like a nice comment.
So it's like a positive song, but I wouldn't say it's like a fun party song.
Yeah, it's just like it's just a different turn from the rest of the album, but it's nice because it definitely you leave with like a nice note, you know, in your head. You're like, oh,
exactly.
After all of that, you're like, it's just kind of like a calm down session.
Exactly. I love it. I found a great interview that Billy did with Seattle Pie, and he's talking about choosing this as the lead single. And he said that it was a hard choice because we try to make every song seem like it could be a single. Doesn't really make sense to do album fillers or just a song that's fine. We don't really write deep, introspective art music. We just write simple, peppy songs. It's usually a hard decision, and this seemed like the right one. So, you know, it's good. It's a banger. Yeah. It's a fun song. But he goes on to say, on a different note, which let's get into this, that when they started recording this record, they were on Sony BMG. After we finished the record, they switched to Capitol EMI. And Billy says he wanted to trust the new label and see what they would do. And, you know, the label was into this song. I didn't know that, Nikki, about the timing of when they switched labels. Like, I knew that this was their one release on Capitol Records. I didn't. Did you know that about the timing?
I didn't realize that it was happening when it was happening, but I think Joel had mentioned, like, I don't know, I heard somewhere, I don't know if it was like I don't think it would have been at a show, but he was talking somewhere, and I remember him saying, like, you know, we're going through a huge change or something like that, and then just briefly touched on the fact that they were switching. So, and I know, like, that can be brutal, especially if you have a project already in the works, and it's like, how do you get everybody on the same page? You know, there's a lot of shit that goes into that. It's like,
and they're switching
both parties happy,
and they're famously switching producers in the middle of making this record.
Yes, but going back to Familiar Face,
yeah,
which I do appreciate.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it is difficult to know, I think, especially when you have stuff started. I mean, this just can go for anyone in any position.
Sure.
If you have something started and you're switching someone who's overseeing what's going on, or just, you know, even different, you have a different set of eyes. It's like, okay, you're just praying that these new people don't, like, completely rip apart your stuff. Or maybe, you know, I think in this case it was actually a good thing, because I think that they were not happy with how the record was progressing, and so when they had switched, they had revamped some stuff and written some new stuff, and it took a turn for the better.
I think I would assume they also wanted a label that could see them the way they saw themselves, like a label that knew what to do in terms of, okay, what songs do we want to push as singles? What songs?
Right. Not forcing, you know, if it's just a natural flow, at least to an extent. You know, it's difficult when you have people pushing on you, I'm sure, to say, you know, well, we really like this, and it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm not even happy with the way this sounds right now, but you keep pushing it, and it's like, if you're not comfortable with the product that you're producing, no matter what it is, it's like, how can you be confident in yourself if you're not confident in just a small sliver of what you're offering to people?
Yeah.
So it is important to really be on the same page, at least enough where, you know, you can come to an agreement, or just people also just recognize and respect what you want to sound like.
Yeah. But I wonder too, and I perpetually wonder this with Cardiology, and we just had an episode with Shannon Carlton, who is from Australia. She lives in Toronto now, but, you know, she was living in Australia at the time that, you know, this album came out. So it was fun to hear her talk about this album a little bit. But it's funny to me, just like how little of a push I felt like this album got in the US.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's like, I really don't remember anything.
No, I really don't. Besides, like their website,
like me telling my friends, and they're like, okay.
I mean, I joined the street team. There was a street team, you know, with Capitol Records. You know, and they'd send me like posters and stuff that I would like hang up around my college campus.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I think it was very, like, there was very minimal promotion, which, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to really remember, like, that specific time. It was a weird time because it was like the transitioning from like old school, like I'm listening to CDs or listening to the radio, to,
and
like,
then Spotify
to get into like
Spotify was 2011, because I remember it was when I had started my blog. So like that 2010, 2011, a lot of those albums, it would be like, well, or am I going to stream this? Am I going to buy this?
Yeah. And then at that point, I mean, a lot of record stores have even closed, like Sam Goody, The Wall, like all of these cool places, Tower Records. You know, I spent hours in those stores, like even if I didn't buy anything. But
you would just like flip through.
Yeah, I would just be like checking out everything. And I think now, even now, but back then at that time, it was like this weird transition where I think people really hadn't like dedicated themselves to one or the other. So like you had people maybe going and checking out stuff like in stores, but then people were like experimenting with, you know, like buying into the digital era. Like, okay, I'm gonna buy this on iTunes, you know. And it was like I remember thinking like I was bummed that I didn't have a physical CD. Like I want to read through the little like the inside leaflet. Like I want to look at it. I pre-ordered
the CD for this, but I feel like I did a pre-order package that came with a shirt.
I think I may have, because I think I have the shirt. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, the amount of stuff I have in my parents' house still, it's like a museum, I'm sure.
I did a big clean out of my closet last it was when it was probably 2018 I did a big clean out, and I was like, all right, I'm going to set aside all the shirts I like never really wear. And
but you don't want to get rid of them. So it's
but I was like, you know what, I just don't have room, and my parents were moving, so like they didn't really have room either.
Right.
So I was like, I'll sit these aside. If I come back in a few months and I haven't worn in 6 months, I'll get rid of. And I did.
Wow, good for you. I'm like, I have like a death pile of shirts. It's like,
which I did,
insane.
But you know, I think I just reached a point where I was like, I don't have room for all this stuff.
Yeah,
I have so much shit. My parents didn't have room either, so I was like, all right, it's just gotta go.
We've got to do something here.
Half of these are just worn out or they don't fit, you know. But I like miss them, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I should have made like a t-shirt quilt with some of these like old Good Charlotte shirts.
I've been saying that I'm going to do that for like probably 10 years. I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, no, but it's funny that you said you were cleaning stuff out, because when I moved to LA, I moved to LA like 8 years ago.
Right.
Oh my God, 8 years ago. Okay. And so I didn't really bring too much stuff with me. And then I think I had gone back to my parents a few times to visit, and I gradually kept bringing stuff back. And my mom, she had cleaned out like my closet in the attic, and she was like, she sent me this big box one day and was like, here's all your shit. Keep it. And so I think I just was like reminiscing so hard with like my maid hoodie. I'm like, oh my God. Like, come on. I have like a maid, like it's a beanie cap, but it has like a tiny visor on the side.
Oh,
like, do you remember that trend? I don't know.
Oh yeah. That was.
Yeah. And it's like, I put it on and I came out and I was like, look at my hat. And my best friend, Sarah, she was with me. She's like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, this is like the year 2003 in a nutshell. Like, what do you mean? This is it. And she was like, you look ridiculous. And I was like, okay. And I just put it back in storage.
I love it.
But yeah. And that's how I busted out my old maid shirt in the picture I sent you.
Yeah, that was like, a great picture.
I was like, I'm going to throw it back. We're going to throw it back. Really good.
There we go. So I want to get into some discourse on this song. Like we mentioned earlier in the episode, seems like they've pretty much dropped this from the set list. And I want to kind of talk about why. I mean, I'm looking at the set list that I have, a signed set list from the Youth Authority tour, and like they don't play anything from Cardiology they didn't play anything from Cardiology, and like this would be like the one song you would think they would play, but they didn't play it.
They didn't. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on why they dropped it from the set list?
Okay, so I think I'm looking at it from just a realistic perspective as far as like time slots, how much time you have, how many songs you can play.
Sure, yeah.
And so like during that during the Cardiology tour, they played a lot off Cardiology, which like I
didn't get to go to that tour, and I'm still so mad at myself for not freaking driving, because I was in Ohio for the summer at school, and I could have driven to Indiana and just gotten a hotel, and I had the money to do it, but I just didn't, and I still regret that so much.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, that tour, I was living in Philly still, and since you're so close, and some of my friends, we all just went, and we drove to like 4 different dates. We went to like DC, we went to like Philly, Allentown, we went to New York. But I remember like I was like loving those shows because, you know, when do you ever get to hear like sex on the radio?
God damn it.
And like low key, wait, I remember, sorry, Joel, but Joel was wasted. Like he was just downing alcohol all night. He was like screaming these, like, I mean, it was such a good time because like, it was just fun. It was like, I don't think I have ever seen this song live, like other than those like 2 or 3 shows, because I feel like, I don't know, I keep thinking that I don't even think that they played all of the same set list through each show, but I'm sure they did, and it was just me having terrible memory. But it was just it was such a good time.
Yeah,
he was so drunk at New York show. He was just like really drunk, and I mean, no offense, Joel, I love you, it's fine. But I was like, yeah, man, get it, this is great. But so those songs, yeah, I feel like they don't really play them ever.
Yeah.
I mean, and it kind of hurts my heart because I really do enjoy those.
I feel like on the realistic level, there's the realistic thing of like Cardiology just did not sell very well in the US, despite being an album that a lot of fans, like we all hold it pretty close to our hearts, I think. Pun intended.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But let's also talk about the content of this song. You know, I think your insight into the song, and that it's, you know, coming from the perspective of like maybe a guy who just has never seen this side of his girl before, I think that's valid, but I don't think that is like obvious. It's definitely not surface level. I think that's, you know,
surface level. You're like, oh, this girl's like a little hoe, and she's like,
right. Like, so are they making a judgment call on the girls who like to get out and have fun? Are they saying that they're vapid, that they're not going to be faithful? You know, are they making a judgment call, or is it observational? What do you think?
I think it's observational.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of being like, because I you know, I don't really go out, like I do, but I'm not like out there. I'm not like in my sequin dress popping bottles. Like that is not me. But I think like it's like maybe it's more of like, hey, I'm just gonna tell my story because how many other people out there can relate? Or like, especially if you're in a newer relationship, it's like you think maybe like on a little bit about this person, a couple months in dating, and then you're all of a sudden you're like, wait, what is this? So I think it's definitely observational. I don't really think that they're being like, I don't think they're like trying to call out a certain type of girl.
No, but I
feel like it's a little too.
The bit in the first verse where he's saying like, oh, I'm not saying that she's cheating, but she's dressed for something that.
Right. Like he's a little suspicious of like, what's happening.
That to me is what feels kind of judgmental, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like assuming that a girl that's.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, hey, like, hey babe. Yeah, hey babe, I'm going out to a meeting really quick, you know, a dinner meeting. Okay.
Right.
And you're dressed in like your glitter mini dress with your heels, and you're like, okay, so that's how you show up in a meeting? But okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, you're kind of like, okay, something is not linking up here.
No.
But yeah, I don't think it's like anything meant to be harsh. It's just kind of like,
I don't think it's meant to be super judgmental, but I do like, I kind of take that a little bit that way personally.
Yeah, I know, I can see
that it's like making some kind of assumptions, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And it's interesting is like the video, the video was shot at Dre's, which is like up the street from where I live.
Oh, really?
But it's actually not. It's not there anymore. It's closed. Well, it exists, but it's not Dre's anymore. And I think it's like in the W Hotel. I think if I'm right. But so it's got like, that place has like a notorious, like, you know, you gotta wait in line, can't get in if you don't look hot. You know, it's got like it's definitely
dress code
has,
and
oh yeah, and it's like, you know, oh, you don't look a certain way, well, we're just gonna let 20 people ahead of you.
Yeah.
So it does have that reputation.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I only went once. So because that's like when I first moved here, and then it actually closed down shortly after I was living here. But I think there's still one in Vegas. But anyway, so I think it's like the whole like reputation of just like nightlife of people, like it's not really reputation, it's actually like a stereotype of people that are really into like clubbing and stuff. I think it just kind of all falls under that roof.
Yeah, now that we're talking, you know, they had Girls and Boys, they had Keep Your Hands Off My Girl that are also kind of Keep Your Hands Off My Girl, I think, is like very obviously kind of sarcastic and cynical and like, what the F is this? And I feel like this is a little less obvious, but maybe there's some element of like trying to be like, okay, this is the sort of club nightlife culture kind of on both ends, the one that's going out and the one that's maybe staying in and watching someone go out.
Right. And like also like the time that was released, like that was a really like that was like a popular vibe in culture and music. Like I think like David Guetta and like you know, all of that like real dancey
kind
of
like, starting to really blow up. Yeah.
And I think just even like the recurring theme in a lot of like music videos was like party, rooftop, like good time. You know, I know it's just like also something that will always be popular for like a music video treatment, but you know, I just remember like that time it was just really blowing up, and like, you know, people would be doing remixes like specifically because it's like you want this to be the song you hear in the club, like with your girls or whatever. So I don't know if they're like kind of like dipping their feet into that just because they
had the remix EP of this, and there was greatest remixes, there was, you know, Keep Your Hands Off My Girl. Oh, I don't. No, I don't.
And you know what? A lot of people don't like it, I think.
Yeah, I don't. I have a much greater appreciation for dance music now than I did in 2008. Yeah. But I've gone back and listened to greatest remixes, and like I'm sorry guys, I still don't love greatest remixes. I love Anxiety, and Los Angeles Worldwide is really fun.
Yeah, some of them I do like more than others, I will say. Like some I definitely am like repeating. Some of them I skip over just because like I'm not a huge fan of like just whatever how they sound, or especially if I'm in the car, you know, it's like just something I don't want to be like hearing blasting with like crazy sound effects that are like, you know, triggering my migraines or something.
I listened to some of the remixes of this earlier today, and I liked the Andrew WK remix a lot. But maybe that's just because I'm like, oh, Andrew WK, that's like a name I actually know.
Yeah. And you know what? Like what's funny is like he has a good reputation and like his vibe. Like have you seen him live or no?
No, I haven't, but I'd love to.
He's like he's like a party man. Like he's like up there like rocking it out, like with the, you know,
but he's like all about positivity and stuff.
Yeah. Like a very loud, in your face, like good time. Like that's just like the feel he puts out. And
I love that.
Anything with his name attached to it, it's like, you know, it's going to be like fun. Even if it already was fun, it's going to be like more.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this music video a little bit. It was directed by Josh Forbes, whose other credits include The Fray, Sarah Bareilles, Alkaline Trio, The Offspring, Metro Station, Coheed and Cambria, Bare Naked Ladies, Ingrid Michaelson. So he's got some good credits. And it's basically, you know, it shows the band playing in this like this big cube thing. And then there's like all these club shots. Girls are dancing. There's stripper poles. There's champagne. And there's a birthday cake.
Yeah. There's like a pillow fight.
There's a pillow fight. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of like, when I first saw it, I remember being like, this is like Playboy Mansion vibe.
Yeah.
And like, to me at the time, I was like, like, I was like, like, whatever, it's not my thing. But like, I can appreciate, whatever. But I was like, I don't know how much I really like this video.
Yeah.
It's a good time, but it's not really like my style, but it does fit very well for the song. So clearly,
yeah.
like, at the end of the day, my say is irrelevant.
Yeah. It's fun though.
But it is a fun video, and it does go definitely in step with the song.
And there's some good cameos in here. Yeah. John O'Callaghan and Kennedy Brock from The Maine, Martin Johnson and Paul Di Giovanni of Boys Like Girls, and Tony Lovato of Mist.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. This is a very like late 2000s, 2010s.
It's almost like a little reunion, because I feel like a lot of I mean, well, I think The Maine were a little bit later, but and Boys Like Girls, like they're kind of in the same time. I know Mess, I've loved Mess for so long.
Yes.
And I photographed them many times, and shout out to Tony, I love you. Thank you for being so kind to me. But so yeah, I think like it's almost like a little reunion, and I was like, oh
yeah, well, they had that together. I think it was 2008 with Boys Like Girls and I think The Maine.
Yeah. Yes, I saw that at Festival Pier. I can't remember what it's called, but Festival Pier, it's coming back again.
Yeah.
Such a good time.
So another kind of underrated and I think sort of overlooked part of this song is Billy's guitar solo.
Oh my God. It's epic.
It's epic.
Like, I mean, like, and I just wait for it, because like, it's literally like, for me, it's like it's just, I don't know. It's like you hit that and you're like, oh yes. Like, just get it, no vocals. It's just all that.
He did an interview with, by the way, great website name, Unrecognizable Schizo.
Yeah.
In June 2010. And so this is like before the record was released or really announced. They're just kind of teasing it. He said that this song stuck out to him, that he says, I've been pushing to do some guitar solos for years. I got to do a really cool one on that song, so that was definitely a highlight for me. It's a fairly pop song for us. It's still rock. It's very guitar heavy, but it's sort of a real pop melody. By putting a big rock guitar solo in the middle of the song, it gives it a nice edge. I like that fine line between being a rock band and writing pop songs.
It's true. It's very true. It's because it kind of gives, I feel though, as that song was kind of a little stepping away from like their usual sound. Not too far, but just like a little bit. And then it kind of like brings you back, because even if you're like not super into the song, or you're just like, you let it play, but you're not like skipping to that song per se, you hear that little guitar breakdown and you're like, oh shit, yeah, here we go. It's like kind of pulls you back in, and then it kind of like just glides you out the rest of the song, and you're like, okay,
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one. That's actually like, I really enjoy like a good, not like a switch, but I like when they're just something that stands out and kind of like
one of those cool little moments. Yeah,
it just loops you right back in.
I love that.
So that's really cool.
So I would love to talk about some reviews and what different reviews said about this song. It was pretty mixed. The critical response to this. Spin actually loved this song. I was a little surprised to hear that, because I felt like Spin would usually be the ones to sort of turn up their nose at a band like Good Charlotte.
Yeah, or be a little more critical.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
They said that the track blends a combination of old and new Good Charlotte. It's a fast-paced party song, but rather than the anthem-style distorted electric guitars, the group uses synthesizers to create the upbeat sound. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Trust me, I love it. But I'm overall, I think I'm very flexible with like what I like. I like basically everything. So I don't, for me, it's sometimes I may hear something I don't like it, and then, it grows on me. But to come out and say like straight out, I mean, at least they weren't being overly critical.
Oh, we'll get into some that are
I know
critical.
there are definitely some people that were like, fuck this song.
Yeah.
So
Benji had done a interview with Spin earlier that year before the song actually came out, talking about how they restarted the record, basically. And he said that on this record, they made a point of not thinking about what's going on in music right now, like the popularity of dance music. We play what makes us feel good, which is fun. And it's such a cool perspective, because on Good Morning Revival, they had like really, really taken in a lot of that dance kind of stuff in their own punk way. Yeah, and then this record, like, they keep some of that, but it also has a very like old school vibe. So that's fun.
Yeah. And I feel like with Cardiology, it's like almost like divided in half. You know, like the first half is like very like almost like reflective of like Good Morning Revival, like, you know, more
it's
like
the fun songs,
dancey, like fun stuff. Yeah. And then, you know, it's like there's the interlude, and then you just kind of take like a nice turn, and then you're like, oh,
a lot of sentimental.
Like, yeah. And it's just, and that's what, like, I mean, I love both, like, I'm saying both halves of that record.
I believe this was episode 3 with Scott Waldman. Scott, I'm calling you out here. So if you listen to this, yes, Scott, I am calling you out by name on purpose. We talked a little bit about Cardiology, but Scott said that, like, he thought Cardiology should have just been like an EP, that it should have been mostly just the first half. And I was just like, no.
I mean, what?
Like, you would like lose out on so many like great stuff in the back half.
I mean, I not to like switch topics really quick, but I have like tattoos that are reflective of songs on the second half of that.
Love that.
So yeah, like, I mean, come on, that is such a great. I mean, the whole album is so great as a whole, but I mean, whatever. Everybody likes different things, especially you know, people that just aren't into it, or it's like, you know, they don't. Maybe their mood isn't matching that type of music that day. So it's, I respect that.
So there was a review from clashmusic.com. They didn't cite this song in particular, but they hated the album. And I feel like this is kind of the song, it's like songs like this that they were pointing at. So I'm going to read this review, and you know, we read a lot of reviews on this show, and like, yeah, of course I could just read the overly positive reviews, but if we're going to talk about Good Charlotte's legacy and their career, I think it's important to look at some of this negative press.
It's not all unicorns
paint the
and
picture.
rainbows.
Yeah, to paint the picture and you know, wonder about maybe not just how it affected them, but how it affected their fan base and such. We're gonna read this review, and like, man, I've found some like negative reviews, but this was like rough. This was
really
rough.
Quick.
Yeah,
really quick before you read this review reminds me of like, so take it back to like Young and Hopeless days when they're like, you know, like calling out these critics and like
these critics and these trust fund kids try to tell me what punk is.
Ready, like that, literally that's this review right here. Kind of, but it definitely reminds me of like back in, you know, it's like 2002, everyone was like, you know, everyone's judging us, you know, they just like to talk shit, you know, it's like, this is exactly what this reminds me of. And it's like way later, you know.
All right,
go ahead. Let's hear it.
Let's do it. Oh boy, I've got a glass of water in case I need it. 8 years ago, Good Charlotte were riding high, trailed by hordes of pubescent punk wannabes, and for a brief moment there was an inclination to take the band seriously. Not anymore. They have trodden the same decaying boards pretty much ever since, and this latest offering is meandering, chirpy slobber that sounds more boy band than ever. The problem is that their fan base has grown up now and are either into hardcore punk or listening to Radio 2, neither of which have room for the likes of Good Charlotte. Avoid.
Listen here, you can't tell me what their fan base is into.
So hard.
You don't know what I'm listening to right now.
Avoid.
That's
so hard.
I mean, that's just like a hard. That's like a big.
I get that, I do wonder about, like,
I also feel like a younger person wrote that review.
I mean, I could talk about the kind of state of music criticism as a whole, but I feel like
hours.
Yeah, but I feel like in the mid 2000s to like 2010, early mid 2000s to 2010, there was a lot of this music journalism that was just like, vast majority of it was just like bashing on stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then I would argue that in 2010 or so, when you start getting this wave of music blogs, you had much, much more, in general, positive music coverage.
Yeah. A lot of, I think, people that were like fans of certain bands or music.
They're like, oh, I can start a music blog. Oh, I can write
and it's obviously like, most people, unless you have a purely like, critical type of style of writing, it's like you are going to want to lift up the people you like and people around you. So you're like, of course, like promoting almost your favorite people.
Yeah, and quite frankly, like, as someone who ran a music blog for 7 years and didn't make any money from it, I'm not making money, so I'm going to write about the stuff I like. I'm not going to waste my time with stuff I don't like. And same with, the couple dozen people that wrote for my blog over the years. Like, generally, the coverage on my site would be positive because generally people would write about stuff they liked. I was like, look, I'm not paying you, but like, I can probably get you into a bunch of shows and get you a bunch of like early advanced music,
Yeah. And also, I think people just, unless you're looking for reviews, particularly about, like, say, an album or whatever, because you haven't heard it yet and you're trying to get some insight. Besides that, I feel people want to read positive stuff, you're going there because you're interested in said topic or whatever. So if you start reading, like if I showed up at your blog and you were like, this Good Charlotte song fucking sucks, like I hate the remixes, blah blah blah, like
you're probably showing up at my blog because you're like, oh,
because I'm looking for like something
what you should listen to,
uplifting. And I'm like, okay, versus like I would be there and be like, you know what, and like click out, like I don't really I'm not going to waste my time. So it definitely goes hand in hand, like as a reader and a writer.
I do want to read this review a little bit from Consequence of Sound, which, kind of like Spin, I think would have a reputation for being pretty snarky at times.
Very selective, I think. They enjoy.
Very selective in like what's cool. But they do have some statements here that are pretty spot on, I think. They say, the band makes attempts to grow, but it probably only works well enough to satisfy hardcore fans. Casual fans will not take to this record as much as the band may have hoped. The industry, the fans, the scene, and the band have changed since their debut, and there's no turning back the clock. Honestly, I think that's pretty spot on,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think it definitely, I mean, I'm sure you've talked to so many people, but even just people that I'm friends with or that either like GC just like a little bit versus people that
don't even know this album.
It's almost like the forgotten. Forgotten. It's like it's almost just like kind of people overlook
forgotten album or overlooked album. Yeah,
it's like and like we were saying earlier, there wasn't that much promotion. The singles didn't hit hard. Like they weren't really like played on top 40 or anything that just really gets the word out. So it just,
and then they go on hiatus less than a year after it comes out,
Right. So, I don't think it's just, I think it's timing too.
Sure.
Like, a lot of timing issues or, and there's the way that everything was with transitioning into digital and the way people are getting their music and how they're exposed to different music. It's like it just kind of got lost, which is actually makes me really sad.
It makes me sad too.
I feel like I don't hear a lot of people say it's their favorite record,
except for the hardcore fans,
right? So it's like or they're like, what is that? I've never even heard of that,
right?
Like what?
I'll read the rest of this Consequence of Sound quote. they said the band is not trying to reinvent the wheel or themselves here. They keep it very simple and basic. Like It's Her Birthday is a little off color from what the album is trying to accomplish. It does not shy away from the dancey mall pop type of music that they were trying to avoid. I don't know about that. I don't know that they were like trying to avoid
I don't think they were avoiding
it.
No, I don't think they were avoiding it.
But it is a catchy single that lets the public know that Good Charlotte is back. It will be a guilty pleasure that some will try to ignore, but most will succumb to.
I mean, they're not wrong.
No, they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
They're not wrong. Yeah, I do think that it was kind of like, given the time and given that what the preceding the previous stuff, I think like they were I don't want to say this and be like wrong, but it seems like they kind of try to play it safe with that song.
I wonder about that. I wonder about that too.
And then, I know there's a lot of discrepancy with like switching the labels. So it's like, I don't really know what exactly happened there, but it feels though as if there was maybe a compromise, or it was like maybe they just settled with that as the single. I don't know.
I wonder about that too, because
there are other songs that I think would have done actually better as a single besides that one.
What would have been your pick for a single from Cardiology?
Well, I really like Sex on the Radio.
But that was a single.
The first single,
right? It wasn't like
pull it in, like let's go, let's like blow it up and try to draw everybody in. But I do like Silver Screen Romance a lot.
Alive is good.
Alive, but also like I think Last Night would have been a really good to come out with. I think a lot of people can.
It's like a similar vibe, I think, to this song.
Yeah, it is. It's similar. It's almost like its cousin song, but I think people can relate to like a lot of the content across every track. So it, but I mean, I don't know. I love them all. So like I can't really, pinpoint exactly, but it's just something about Like It's a Birthday that is definitely seemed a little bit like they were playing it safe. But I don't know. I could be wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's what the whole point of this show is, to like discuss it, because there's not always a right or wrong answer or interpretation. It's all about what are our thoughts, and what do we think, and what do we as listeners, what have we perceived?
Yeah, for sure.
So Nikki, how has Like It's Her Birthday held up for you over time?
So I still love it.
Yeah.
Though I will say that there's been more records since then, and it has definitely dropped like in my ranking, but it's nothing like personal. It's just that some of the newer content is really like taken.
Oh yeah.
Like, it just not replaced, but I'm gonna say it's just bumped that song down the list, and taken over. So I still listen to I listen to all the records, but I still jam out to it. Like it just, for me, with the whole like album being released on my actual birthday, like
that's so great.
It will like always hold like a special place to me. Like it, so really, I still love it. I'll always love the whole record, especially that song. So
love that.
Yeah.
So I always love asking people this as we wrap up, but what has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed?
Well, hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. It's crazy to think that I was like 13 or 12, or I think I was 12 at the time, discovering them, and it's like you don't realize how fast the time goes, where the time goes, and if I would have told myself at that moment, hey, half of a lifetime from now, actually more than that, you're going to be living in LA, and then further you're going to be photographing them, and I'm just so grateful that I've got to experience so much stuff since moving here. I got to go to the Generation RX album release party. Which was like
cool.
not too, it was super intimate. It was like so cool.
So cool.
And so like, I'm just really grateful for that stuff and the little things. And, you know, nothing, it's only gotten better, put it that way. It's with age, it's gotten better. And I'm just really, I will always love them so much. Like they're my favorite band and no one can like fucking change that. So
love that.
Whatever. Could try to come in and change it, but
you're not gonna
yeah. Or people are like a lot of my friends are like, oh, you still like go see Good Charlotte? And like,
oh yeah, I get that. I get that too.
But yeah. And so I think it's just really cool. And being in a lake was the best thing I could do for myself because I'm just glad that I'm so central to like just music in general. And it's been such a good ride. And
I love that.
Yeah. We're all getting old together.
Yes.
Like so, essentially what's happening.
Nikki, do you have any last words about Like It's Her Birthday, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
I don't think so. Shout out to GC. Shout out to everybody. It's just really cool to have this, like, these people that you know, I've met so many people that I would have never met, if it wasn't for them, even if they not GC fans, but just people in general that through Good Charlotte or like, I've met so many people through like MDDN, like artists and stuff. And it's just insane to think about like the spider web that is created of like connections. And like, I found out all this
so
new music. It's like, you just get opened up to like everything. And it's not just like GC. It's like, it's just a whole nother world that you can get, just build on.
I love that.
Grateful for that.
So Nikki, I update every week the Generation GC and Friends playlist. Listeners, that's on Spotify. Just search Generation GC and Friends. And I update that with the song that we cover on the show, as well as a recommendation from our guests. So can you leave our listeners with a song recommendation? Just anything, not Good Charlotte, but any song that you are digging lately.
Okay. This is tough. It's just one?
Yeah, just one.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to say Poppy.
Okay.
And Concrete, because she is like such a badass. Like she's so fucking dope. And if you can listen to the entire record, I mean, obviously
I will. Yeah.
But I will say it is a ride. It is a ride. It is like, I mean, you're all over the place and it's so fun. And I am obsessed with the whole sound. So definitely Poppy, Concrete, listen to it, try not to be, I think like some people are like, oh, what the fuck is this? But like, once you hear it, you're like, yeah, what the fuck is this? This is amazing.
Okay.
So it's very different.
I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued because I've heard about Poppy, but I haven't listened.
She's great. She's really cool. It's definitely not like reflective of like, pop punk. She's got her own sound and it's just very unique. And if you can really appreciate like just different, like the layers that get put into creating like a song that's just completely unique, like this is it for you. Like,
sure,
just live it up, blast it, whatever you got to do.
I love it. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you online?
So you can find me at Nikki Phillips on just about everything. Instagram, Perfect. Twitter. So I'm there.
And you have a website too, right?
I do. Okay, so I will admit that it has not been updated.
It's okay. I don't think any photographer is ever actually on top of updating their website.
I mean, regularly. I blew it out when I first started. And then I think what happened was I kind of just transitioned to Instagram because I think it's easier for people to just click and pull it up.
Yeah.
So
I have a website. I'll do I used to say, every 4 to 6 months I'll update my website. But really it's every... In terms of updating the photos, really, it's maybe once a year. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, for whatever reason, if I am referencing someone, I'm actually just referencing them to my Instagram now.
Sure,
because, I mean, but that's something that like I have, my goal is to redo my entire website this summer. So it's on the list.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. Listeners, please make sure you're subscribed to the show on iTunes, follow it on Spotify, wherever you listen, and make sure to follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, Pod, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Last week, we talked about something else from Good Morning Revival. We've also got a bonus episode coming in a few days covering something that is not a Good Charlotte studio album track. It's a very fun one. And then next Wednesday, we'll be talking about a song from Youth Authority. Thank you again so much for tuning in. If anyone wants, you can also follow me, Molly, at mhuddleston, MHUDELSON, on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in.